Hello everyone and welcome to our character profile. This week we're doing Zoe Tattersall.
Yeah, I never thought we'd actually get around to doing Zoe, but I've been watching more of her recently. She's only just left on ITV3 and we've obviously seen her on our DVDs as well. And it's reminded me that I really quite like that character. When I first started watching it in the late 90s, I think I quite got engaged with her story, and she was like a new character that had started just after I started watching, and she didn't stay for too long, but that was back in the day when I didn't really have any concept of what's a long time or a short time in a soap.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
And she came in, did what she needed to do,
got out,
and then got out, and who knows what Zoe's up to at the moment. But obviously she's gone on, the actress Jo Froggatt, to do big things, which I guess we'll talk more about later. So,
but first of all, we should probably say this is Conversation Street, and I'm
we probably
Gemma.
should, and I'm Michael.
That's it, really.
This is our bonus podcast for the week.
Yeah.
So let's have a quick rundown of Zoe's statistics. Gemma, over to you.
She was born on the 13th of September 1981, so she's still very young in tender years.
Yes, Zoe's going to turn 40 soon.
She had one child called Shannon Tattersall, who's
/ Katie.
born in 1997. She first appeared on the 19th of May 1997, and she last appeared on the 16th of December 1998. She was in 126 episodes, and as she said, she is played by Joanne Froggatt.
Do you didn't really know much about Zoe before we recently started watching, did you?
No.
If I was saying Zoe, you might have said, is that the one that went off with the cult?
Mate, no, I probably wouldn't have
Wouldn't even say that. But you know who Jo Froggatt is. I mean, what were your kind of overall impressions of Zoe watching her?
Just to be clear, I've only seen excerpts of her story.
That's true.
She was in 126 episodes. I don't even think
you might have seen 10 of them or so.
Yeah.
Because you've watched bits, whereas I've just recently revisited her whole time on the show.
Yeah, so I honestly really not that much more clued in than I was before.
Well, you just wait, Gemma, because you're about to refresh everyone's memories.
Ready to learn.
Teach you about her. Well, Gemma's about to talk soon, as if she knows what she's talking about, but she's really just reading the notes, whereas I am talking from experience. Now, this could have been a lot different, because the character of Zoe was as with all Corrie castings, I imagine. Lots of actors went for that role, but notable here is that Georgia Taylor and Jane Danson both went for the role of Zoe. So they've gone on to play the Battersby sisters in Coronation Street. It does make me wonder how different life would have been if one of those had got it. I think they both could have played the part, because Zoe was a bit of she was one of these ne'er-do-well, scallywag scruff bags that kind of came onto the street, raised, come from the wrong side of the track sort of thing, and she stayed in that character all the way through as well, because quite often in Coronation Street you'll get your Beckys or your Gemmas or what have you, and they start rough and dodgy and end up integrating and being accepted members of the community, whereas Zoe never was. But I could totally see, having recently watched 97, I forgot what the characters' names are, Toya and Leanne, Jane and Georgia could have very easily played the part of Zoe, don't you think?
Yeah, they're all three of them very talented actresses, and I would not have been able to pick out of those three, especially, I don't know what the circumstances of it were. I don't know if they went, actually those two would be good together for a later role, or if they just said not necessarily suitable for this role, or
because
imagine having those three in front of you and having to pick just one.
And I mean that to fish them out of all the others that I guess went to the audition as well. Yeah. But Zoe first appeared only like a month and a half before the Battersbys came on the show, so there must have been
they must have said bring them back,
keep an eye on those two.
Yeah.
But we and I guess if Jo hadn't got the role of Zoe, she would have almost certainly gone for one of the Battersby roles. So we could have had Jo Froggatt playing Toya or Leanne at this. And again, I think that she could have definitely taken on both of those roles. They're very similar. I mean, I know that Jo Froggatt and is still close to them as well. She's still friends, isn't she? So how different life could have been. But the story behind Jo's casting is that she'd only been on one thing on telly before Coronation Street, which was an episode of The Bill in 1996. By the way, did you see the picture of Conor McIntyre in The Bill that was making its way around Twitter a few days ago? He had hair and everything, amazing. So Corrie was her second role, and when she
was only like 16, right?
Yes, she was only 16 when she got this part.
Aww.
I think that I may be wrong. I think that Jane and Georgia were maybe slightly older. Yeah, they must have been. Yeah, but so very young and innocent and thrown into the world of TV. She was working at WH Smith's at the time, and she took along a VHS tape of her in The Bill as part of her audition, and she thought the interview went pretty terribly. Apparently, they made her do this scene again and again and again. I watched another interview with her the other day, and eventually they struck gold, and they're like, we'll have her.
Right, do it like that.
Do it like that next time. So there's a bit of a Zoe's backstory. I've seen two different versions of it. I tend to believe Corripedia over everything else because they get it over the show from the show. And Corripedia says that Zoe grew up in care and eventually got sick of it, so she decided to run away, live on the streets with her boyfriend Liam. And Liam was the guy who was hanging around with Zoe at the beginning of her time on the show. This is when she discovers she's pregnant, and she considers an abortion, so she's pregnant when the show starts. Whereas I was also having a look through the Coronation Street magazine from the 90s, from that stash that I've got, and the story there is that her dad used to drink a lot, then he died, and her mum, she was living there with her mum, who had strings of boyfriends. Last one hit Zoe a few times, so she ran away to live with friends and stay rough. So I don't know whether that was like an original story or whether it was a mixture of what. I don't remember what it was established on the show, even though I watched it fairly recently. But she had a rough time of it, didn't she? And we definitely know that when she first came into the programme, she was living on the streets with her pal Liam, making her debut in the video games arcade where Judy Mallett's working. And Zoe's story on the street is tied very, very closely in with the Mallets, isn't it? Who we still haven't done character profile of, so I guess we'll leave it a little while after we do this, because there might be a little bit of common ground. So Judy's working, she's like behind the ticket booth or something, and she has a big glass screen or whatever in front of her, and Liam and Zoe turn up one day and they try and get money off of her, sort of give us what's in the till, basically. And then they accuse Gary Mallett, Judy's husband, of assaulting Liam. And Zoe kind of goes along with this. It definitely is established fairly early on that Liam's the driving force of their ne'er-do-welldom, but Zoe's kind of just a bit too weak and impressionable, and she all the way through, Zoe wants to be accepted and to be loved and everything, doesn't she? That's kind of her story. She wants the baby, she wants Ashley, she wants the cult that she ends up in. But yeah, she goes along with Liam, and then they demand that the Mallets cough up £200. Gary's not done anything at this point, but even Judy is struggling to believe his side of the story and says, look, we'll pay you £150 if you can quiet it down. So I don't know. So they're pretty convincing. So later on, we to try and fund this, Judy tries to steal from the Rovers' till. She's caught by Samantha Failsworth, who's barmaid working there at the time, who says to Judy, look, you just need to speak to the police about this. But for whatever reason, Judy carries on trying to do whatever she can to meet this demand by Liam and Zoe. But by this point, Zoe does want to back out because she feels a bit sorry for Judy, because she knows that Gary hadn't done anything wrong. So Zoe carries on hanging around the arcade. I think she's split up with Liam by this point, and Judy says that you just want this money to buy drugs, don't you? So they're getting into an argument. Judy slaps her. And then at this point, Zoe realises that the reason that they want the money is because she wants an abortion.
No, Judy realises.
Judy realises that Zoe wants an abortion. Zoe is absolutely horrified by this.
Judy is horrified.
Judy, what did I say?
Zoe.
Judy is horrified. Get my name. Zoe. Judy's the one that has wanted a baby ever since she came onto the street. She says she's been in about 2 years at this point, and the Mallett story is basically leading up to Judy eventually having these twins in late 98. But yeah, so she's like, you want me to pay for you to get rid of a kid when that's all me and Gary wanted? Yeah. So she's like, no way. not having the cash. Month goes on. Judy finds Zoe begging on the street, and she invites her to come back home with them to number 9 for a bit of food, bit of a bath, get herself cleaned up, and she comes up with this plan. You can probably guess what it is if you haven't been following this on Classic Coronation Street. Guess. Judy says, "Oh, Gary, we want a baby. She's got a baby and a tum-tum. How about we,
Why don't we snatch it?
buy it off her?" It's not a snatch. It's a transaction. It's a Terry Duckworth style. You give me the money, I'll give you the kid. There seems to be like quite a quite a lot of that going on, Corrie, in the 90s, wasn't there? Because we've also been seeing Roy and Hayley struggling with should they buy Wayne, their foster kid, off of their.
I know, it is really weird how often buying children comes up in Coronation Street.
Yeah, we had that. We had Becky and Steve bought Max off of Kylie, didn't they?
Weird.
Who'd want to buy a child?
Can't give him away.
I understand it. Anyway, Judy's like, let's get this baby off of her. And also, and we'll pretend that it's ours. He thinks she's absolutely nuts. So he says, right, Zoe, take this money, you leave. You're going to write Judy a message saying, "Oh, thanks for looking after me, but I need to move on." So she does that. Off we go. Judy thinks that Zoe's just done a flit and the idea is put to bed for a little while. But then the following month, she shows up on the doorstep again. And Zoe is like, "Oh, brilliant, come in." And then
Judy says, "Come in."
What did I say?
Zoe.
I'm getting the wrong names again. Sorry. This is useless. Judy, copy, paste, replace. Judy says, "Look, I'm going to pay you £2,000 if you let us have this baby." And eventually Gary's won round to the idea. Because, once a woman gets an idea in her head, she wants something.
Oh, yeah.
Just
handbag,
just give it to her, Gary.
Shoes, baby.
Give her the baby, exactly. Audrey then jumps to the conclusion that Gary is the father. And she starts spreading this gossip, because at this point, I don't think they were they obviously... I can't remember what they're telling the neighbours at this point, but Audrey thinks, "Oh, hang on a minute." It does seem a
trifle odd that this pregnant woman who's got nothing
hanging
to do,
around.
Yeah,
is this baby yours, Gary? And then she starts spreading the gossip. Judy is furious at this point. I mean, this is eventually the story they end up going with, because it seems to make sense. So poor old Gary is painted as somebody who's not only cheated on his wife, but has done it with a 16-year-old waif off the street and has managed to get her up the duff. So he's like, has this shame. Dear. Judy is, everybody's telling Judy, "Oh, you're so good. How could you even, you're so noble for standing with your guy for through this," or whatever.
Poor old Gary.
I know, totally poor old Gary. So Judy just she wants to get rid of Zoe as soon as this kid is born, because doesn't want her bonding or anything. But Gary says, "No, we need to keep her on the scene for a little while, otherwise the social services are going to come sniffing around. We need to kind of ease her gently out of our lives." But they don't count on blabbermouth of the street, Leanne Battersby, finding out about this this little scheme that they're hatching, because Zoe starts being friends with Leanne. So again, another interesting link between them, considering they could have all been switched up on the roles here, these actresses here.
Switched at birth.
Yes. So Zoe, friends with Leanne, I think she gets drunk one day or something and tells you about this deal with the Mallets.
While she's pregnant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally quite a long way pregnant.
Okay.
She was a scally, what can I say?
What can you say?
Yeah. She didn't care about this baby, remember? She wanted to abort it, and the only reason that she's keeping it is to get the £2,000. She doesn't care whether it comes out, back to front or whatever. Is that what happens when you get drunk when you're a baby? I don't know. When you're pregnant, I don't know what happens when you're drunk when you're a baby.
So I don't think anyone could tell if you're drunk when you're a baby.
There's this baby inside of me, and whatever happens to it, I'm going to pass it on to the Mallets. I don't care. She doesn't count on any of this bonding actually happening. But getting drunk with Leanne does precipitate the labour somewhat, because she goes into premature labour and gives birth to this hairy little girl called Shannon. And sorry, but in the whole history of Coronation Street, I have never known a baby with such a luscious crop of hair. It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
I don't really
I would
remember.
Rub my fingers through that hair if I was the mum.
Rub it?
Actually, yeah, you just, tousle it. It's quite impressive. Anyway, she's got this baby. Judy calls her Katie, should I say. An interesting fact, this was only the 15th birth on Coronation Street. So the show had been going a good 35 years plus at this point, but only 15th birth on Coronation Street. And she was only the 11th mum on Coronation Street as well, because you obviously got people like...
have more than one baby.
Yes, like Valerie Byler having a twins or whatever. But considering the rate at which mums are popping out sprogs left, right and centre, it is quite incredible that it only took 35 years, not only, for the 15th birth to happen on the street. But never mind, anyway, so we got this baby Katie at this point, and Zoe is immediately shunned by the Mallets.
She's ignored because the baby is more exciting.
Yeah, we don't need you anymore, Zoe.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because both of the Mallets, I think, are looked on quite favourably, aren't they? They are, I think there were definitely some people who at the time didn't like the family. I mean, when they came in 1995, they were a bit rough around the edges for, the clean living, wholesome sorts of the Cobbles. And, I mean, this was 2 years before the Battersbys rocked up and changed... It changed what we understand about new families and everything. But yeah, they were a bit rough. But I think generally people look back and say, yeah, Judy and Gary, they were decent people at least. But they were like, yeah, never mind, Zoe. We got our baby now. That's fine. You go.
Take your $2,000.
Yeah.
But they're still getting midwife visits, aren't they?
Yeah. Zoe has to kind of put on a show during this, and act like that Gary's the babe, the dad, and everything. And but she, unfortunately for Judy and Gary, she starts bonding with this baby, and she goes to a cot in the middle of the night and said, "Oh, I'd have called you Shannon," and everything. So it's a bit like, if you're a farmer, you shouldn't name your sheep, should you? Because when time comes for a nice bit of roast lamb, it's a bit harder to put the bullet in. What's a good sheep's name? I can think of lots of cows' names. Daisy, Buttercup, Clover.
What's the name from Wallace and Gromit?
Sean. Yeah,
okay.
Put a bullet in. No, so she's named her. She's started this little bond here. So Judy and Gary notice that she's getting a bit close to this baby and says, "Right, you go now." So off she is.
They give her the money.
Yeah. Exactly. So meanwhile, while Zoe's away, Leanne is getting pretty hacked off because she obviously is friends with Zoe, and everyone's saying, "Oh, that Zoe, she's dumped the baby on Gary. What a terrible mum, blah blah blah." And Zoe doesn't, and Leanne doesn't like hearing all these nasty, what she considers to be lies spread again about her pal Zoe. So
she tells everybody what really happened.
Yeah, she does. She tells everybody, but Judy's like, no, don't believe Leanne. So Leanne is painted as a massive liar who, at the time, she's only been on the show for barely any time at all. The Battersbys have crashed into Coronation Street with a bang. Percy's left, Mavis is left, everybody hates the Battersbys, so it's yet more fuel to the anti-Battersby fire here. So Leanne, by the end of the year, is like, right, fed up with this, I'm going to find Zoe, tell her to come back to the street, say what's what. So Zoe shows up at number 9. Judy is absolutely terrified that she wants the baby back, and so Judy disappears off with baby Shannon. Katie, she is at that point still, isn't she? Gary finds her wherever, I don't know, and says, look, Zoe just wanted more money, it's fine. However, Zoe sticks around the area and makes this massive dramatic entrance in the middle of Katie's christening party, says, oh, I just want to see Katie, but clearly she wants her back. And the Mallets at this point are like, Zoe's always going to be hanging around here, we need to do a classic Corrie midnight flit. However, Ashley is now on the scene. He starts taking pity on Zoe, and because he's just so nice, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he's going out with Maxine at this point, but he sees that this poor girl, who is roughly his age, I mean, I guess he's a few years older, is going through a bit of a bad time here, and so she latches onto him.
17 here.
Yeah, she latches onto him. Like I said earlier, she's always wanted a bit of affection, a bit of attention. She feels like she wants to belong somewhere, and she did belong with the Mallets, but she kind of soon realised, they just used me, basically. But there's this other nice guy, Ashley, he's interested in me, so she latches onto him, and she kind of opens up to him about the Mallets buying the baby and everything. He takes her in at number 4. Maxine does not like this, so she leaves Ashley when he says, no, sorry, she's staying with us now. I'm not going to let her sleep rough when we've got this whole house that she can stay in. So Zoe sees the Mallets one day packing up their car because they're planning to do this flit. She nips into number 9, snatches the baby back, barricades herself inside Ashley's house, and I think Judy blames Gary for this. I think she was away at the time, or she was off somewhere, and Gary was the one that was supposed to be looking after the baby. But yeah, he was doing something in the car. They both go round there, bang on the door. Ashley lets them in, but says, "No, you're not having the baby though." So when they back off, Zoe gets away to go and find Liam, her old boyfriend, and so she's off living with him now for a little bit. And I can't remember whether it was that episode. I think it all happen in one very, very dramatic episode. She's snatched the baby and done a runner, and she finds him at this totally minging squat somewhere. And
so at this point, Zoe has taken her baby back from the Mallets.
Yeah.
And run away.
Found Liam, and the very end of the episode, the final scene, is poor baby Katie/Shannon. I suppose she's Shannon at this point. Now she's under Zoe's watch, and she's in this horrible flat. It's dark. There's maybe like a candle is the only light. Yeah, so it's a squat, and Zoe and Liam have both gone out drinking. So she's basically abandoned this baby that she wanted so much, but she's like, oh, I'm gonna go out drinking. She's just a really, really terrible mum. So Liam soon gets tired of having this baby around. I mean, he didn't particularly even want Zoe back necessarily, but having a crying, pooing, vomiting baby all over the place, he soon gets sick of. So he says, "Look, Gary and Judy, you give me £2,000, I'll let you have the baby back." And Judy's like, "Great, where can I get myself that kind of money though?" "I know, I offer my body." So she goes and finds her boss at the, her old boss, I don't think she works there anymore, I can't remember, at the arcade, and says that, "I'll sleep with you for £2,000. And he's like, "Yeah, sounds like a good deal to me." So she manages to get this money. Zoe...
So she actually does it?
She actually does it. She sleeps with her boss.
Oh dear.
Again, like, it was harrowing. That's just...
Oh dear.
And it just shows what she would want to do. And she was utterly appalled at herself for doing it. But she literally would stop at nothing. This is, remember, 2-3 years now into the story where she's desperate to have this baby. And she thought she had it, but it's been snatched away for her. She would do anything to keep this baby. So yeah, he goes along with it. But Zoe says, "No, I'm not letting go of this baby." But she does at least leave Liam and goes back to stay with Ashley. So the state of play at the end of the year is that Zoe and Ashley are living back at number 4 together. They're getting closer together.
Zoe, Ashley and the baby.
Zoe, Ashley and the baby, yeah. Ashley had previously told Maxine that he didn't fancy Zoe or anything. But yeah, they eventually sleep together at the end of the year. Fred thinks he's a massive fool that he's ditched lovely Maxine for, this ne'er-do-well off the street. And also by the end of the year, Martin Platt knows the truth about the baby. Well, everybody does. I think Gary tells Martin because I can't remember why he told her, but that he's linked to Leanne because Leanne at this point is married to their son Nick, and so she's been kind of like exiled from the Platt's house for spreading all these lies, what they think is lies, and just being a nasty piece of work. But now Leanne is kind of vindicated because Martin knows, and then she basically tells everybody. So everybody now knows exactly where this baby came from. Would you like me to pass over to you to tell everyone what's gone on in 1998? Because I do realise I've been talking quite a lot.
That's fine. Where's the cult?
The cult comes later, and she by the end of 1998 she's gone, Gemma. So this is the final year.
Exactly.
Of Zoe.
That's why I'm like, she ain't got time for any of this. She's pretty intense when she was in the show. So in 1998, Zoe starts to get tired of Shannon, and she pays Toya to babysit her so that she can go clubbing. And Ashley doesn't like this, has a go at her, so she packs up to go to a hostel. And then Ashley's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to," and then persuades her to come back. Yeah,
she didn't have the mothering instinct in her. She liked having a baby, but she preferred the call of being a teenager and going out doing all those things that teenagers do was just far stronger. She's just
Yep. So
useless.
Fred says, "Right, I'm selling the house because I don't really like Zoe. I'd rather get rid of her. And I don't care if I lose you as well."
It was really harsh. I mean, I can kind of see where Fred's coming from. That Ashley, who at this point was still his nephew, wasn't he?
Yeah.
moved on from Maxine, nice, secure, stable Maxine, for this girl off the street. But
Fred knows that Ashley's his son.
Yeah, he does.
Right,
but
so he says,
I don't think Fred came out of this part of the story looking particularly good.
I'm selling the house and fed up with you, but Zoe forces him to back down by saying, yeah, you can't do that because we've got a rent book and we've got rights.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. Nick and Leanne move into the house and they get fed up with having this baby screaming all the time. I don't know where this house is.
This is number 4. This is the house that's now Sally's. So at this time, we got baby Shannon / Katie. We've got Ashley, Maxine. We got Nick and Leanne, but it's owned by Fred. He bought it off of Mavis when she left.
People rent.
Yeah, so it's the happening young teenagers pad.
Swinging. Yeah, great. Zoe ignores the fact that Ashley's worried that Shannon is always coughing all the time, being neglected, and she agrees to let Judy babysit so that she can just get out and do what she wants.
The signs that things were not looking right for Shannon became pretty clear in this point in early 1998. Because usually if you got babies on the show, they might have a bit of crying every now and then, or usually they're just you never even hear them, but there was lots of coughs added into the background noise of Shannon at the moment, which we don't usually get. But Zoe's like, she's fine, fine.
Who cares?
Babies do that.
You look after her.
Yeah.
So she goes out and leaves Leanne and Nick. Are they newlyweds at this point? They're babysitting anyway.
Yes, they are.
And Leanne finds that Shannon is very sick, and she's been sick, and she's kind of not really moving. So she phones for an ambulance and she gets the Mallets round to check on her, but by this point Shannon has stopped breathing and Zoe returns home to find this absolute chaos and a dead baby.
Yeah, I think this was another hour long. At this sort of stage in Coronation Street, it felt like if there was something big that wanted to happen, they would give it an hour long episode, didn't they? Because a lot of the ones that we've been watching, that we've picked to watch, turn out to be an hour. And this one we saw, and it was like really gut wrenching. The end of this episode, Leanne comes downstairs. She's absolutely terrified. She's like, Nick, I don't know what to do. She's been sick and everything. She's gone a funny colour. And Judy's brought in. She at one point thought that this baby she'd be able to raise as her own. And Zoe comes back from the club. She has to find out of this. Yeah, it was really, really horrible stuff. And I mean, we've had obviously Oliver die in the past 12 months in Coronation Street, but this was the first time that you had a young child, an infant, die on Coronation Street, and it must have caused like shockwaves at the time. I vaguely remember watching it when it was on. I don't think I was particularly shocked. I was fairly new to soaps back then, and these things just happen, and I was only
a teen boy.
14-year-old. It's like, oh, baby's dead. How exciting. But watching it now is like, God, this is, just imagine how awful and terrible this must have been. It was brilliantly played by all the cast. It was fantastic. Really good episode.
Shannon had meningitis, and that's what she died of. And there was a interview with Joe Froggatt in the Corrie magazine.
Yeah, I was having a look through because this was prime time for Coronation Street magazine. It kind of ran from early to late 90s, and one of the things that she said was it's been a bit upsetting reading some of the scripts, and it's very challenging, but my biggest worry is that I do it well. There's so many people who have lost children, and I'm really keen to handle this story sensitively because I feel I have a responsibility to them. So she was she must have only been 17 at this point, and she was being given a story where this baby that she's given birth to dies, and that's a test of you as an actress, isn't it?
Well, they had a lot of faith in her. We were talking recently about how much faith the show's put into all the young cast for the Seb story, but this is just as
it really is. She was wonderful. She's such a great actress, and one of the things that I admire about the character, that I like about, that I've enjoyed watching her, is that throughout this 2-year period she's always in character. Everything she does, I can see, that's how her character would react to this, and at no point am I thinking, that's a bit of a badly played line. Oh, don't worry, she's only a kid. It was like she was perfect all the way through.
Well, Zoe gets disgusted because her neighbours who had shunned her now are rallying around her, and there's a wake and that Fred lays on, and everybody shows up, and
Everybody, because she had been, I can't remember what the word is, when you're ostracised by everybody on the street. Everybody looks down on her, and now suddenly they're all saying, "Oh, so your kid's died. Oh, let me do what I can to look after you." Even Fred, who was the one that put on this wake, and she's like, "Hang on a minute. Up to this point, you hated me, and now I don't believe what you're saying."
Well, Emily tells Zoe that she's praying for Shannon, and Zoe slaps her. Really mean.
She slapped Emily Bishop. Can you believe it?
So, the Mallets get happy news because Judy is pregnant, but this is not good news for Zoe. She is heartbroken because she thinks that they're moving on and forgetting Shannon.
This is very much like Nick finding that he had Sam, isn't it? Just at the time when Ollie died. There's a new kid on the block, and now and now we've got Judy is like, "Oh, I've got my own kid," and so Zoe thinks, "Oh
dear." So what does she do? What's the best thing?
Sets fire to Shannon's pram.
Just like
Hope. This is basically exactly the same as what we're saying now, just in a different order a bit.
She shoves the pram at Gary. She chops her hair off. I don't know if this is the same scene.
I think a bit later we cut to her and looking in the mirror, cutting her hair off in grief.
Ashley calls in a doctor, and Zoe gets sectioned and feels a bit betrayed about this, and tells Ashley that she doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. But this is just kind of similar to what they're doing to Hope. Hope should be sectioned as well.
Yes.
Set fire to.
She needs something.
Zoe gets released. She makes up with Ashley, but then she snatches Fiona's baby Morgan, who is Emma's half-brother. Yeah,
we saw Morgan on the show a couple of years ago. He turned up when they were going through the revelation of Emma being Steve's secret love child. And Morgan, showed up as if he's always around, yet we haven't seen hide nor hair of him since, have we?
Well, he got snatched by Zoe. They get found on a bridge. She gives Morgan back, but then she tries to jump off the bridge. And Gary steps in and rescues her.
Yeah, no, this was filmed at the Manchester Shipping Canal. And I was reading another article about this. And it's really quite interesting because if you want to dive into the canal and get a stunt diver to go in there, it needs to be a certain depth. And this particular place where they jumped in was apparently 4 feet 7 inches. And that's just about right for jumping in and having a dramatic soap there. Any shallower than that.
She actually did jump in?
Yeah, exactly. She jumped in and then... it was a stunt actress.
Of course.
Yeah.
The character did.
Yeah, the character jumped in with Gary after her. But yeah, if it's any deeper than this one, then the stunt actors Any shallower, sorry. The stunt actors have to go in on their back or something, and it's a little bit rubbish. But yeah, this was just about deep enough to go feet first. It's a great little scene.
Had to make sure there weren't any trolleys in there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no dead bodies or anything that you're going to jump in.
Land on someone who's already in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so but the stunt actress who they got to be Zoe here had already had a bit of a past experience doing this because she was on Titanic and she had to jump 80 feet into the sea. So just jumping, I don't know how far this was from the bridge, 20 foot maybe. Small fry.
No problem.
Yeah.
So, Zoe now is got to go into rehab, so she goes to a support group, which is also attended by Paul Fisher, who is the boss that Judy slept with for that £2,000. And now he's like, I feel really bad about it.
I think,
in retrospect,
I can't remember exactly what happens, but it's like, I've left my job or left my wife or something. I slept with this woman, and he feels really guilty about it. And so he's there at the meeting, coincidentally, and she kind of puts 2 and 2 together about, hang on a minute.
So that's what you did. So she tells Judy about it, and she says, I won't tell anybody. But Judy feels so guilty that she tells Gary anyway, and they split up.
Just for a little bit. And then we don't really get to see any more of Zoe for another 4 months or so. And I don't think there was any particular reason for it. I think she was always supposed to be there. But you go from late spring 1998 to October 98, and then there's nothing. But once you get to October 98, you get this brilliant story, which turns out to be Zoe's last. And you saw a little bit of this, didn't you, on the DVDs? But yeah, I think you'd have preferred to have seen more.
Yeah, so by October, she's trying to get her life back on track. She goes out clubbing. Best way to clear your head between, decluttering your house and meditating. She meets Ben and Ruth, and they pretend to befriend her, but actually they're up to something because Ruth steals her purse.
And Ben is played by Bern Gorman, who is semi-famous actor in the UK, isn't he? We got to like him in Torchwood, but then he was also played. He was in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
I can't remember what the character was called, but he was one of the he was in that when they were all staying in that hut beyond the wall. He was there that killed someone or other, and then someone or other killed him. But
he plays generally unlikable.
Yeah, he's very good at
crosses,
at pulling very unsavoury sort of faces.
Yeah,
isn't he? So, he comes across as a real slime ball. But
Ruth returns the bag the next day and gets Zoe talking, and then she comes back a few days later with her cousin. He's like, "Oh, I also lost my baby, and I'm struggling as well," and Zoe tries to comfort her, and Ruth says, "You know what? You've got a real gift for helping people." So they carry on building this relationship between Ben, Ruth, and Zoe, and they come round for dinner, and they're vegetarian, so everyone thinks they're weird.
There's warning signs, not just the fact that they're vegetarian. Obviously, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it wasn't as common
in the 90s. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, they like sort of say grace or a little prayer to Nirab or whatever, and Nick and Leanne especially are kind of just giving each other the side eye go, what are these weirdos that Zoe's brought back? Yeah, they do. They kind of have a bit of a giggle about it afterwards.
So Zoe's kind of being love-bombed by these people, and they eventually offer her a job at the Etheric Foundation, and she gets presented with a crystal of Nirab, and they go house to house trying to sell these crystals to people, Ruth and Zoe.
Yeah, so the Etheric Foundation is like the base of operations for this cult. And I got vague memories of it at the time. It was probably like, Corridor's cult story. So I don't know at what point the viewers twigged onto the fact that this is what it was. But yeah, when they go around there and they're selling these meditative healing crystals and everything, and they're all there and they're chanting and everything, it soon becomes pretty clear that they're definitely up to no good.
They brainwash Zoe, and Leanne thinks Zoe's turning into a loony, and Nick's like, don't worry, it's just her way of dealing with the loss of her baby.
Interesting how Leanne says that Zoe's a loony for this, when again after Ollie's death she's the one that turns to that TV medium, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. Right, so Ruth guilt trips Zoe into giving up sex and alcohol, and then she and Ben start to say, oh, you're really ready to take on more responsibility at the foundation. And what is harmonic convergence? I don't understand.
Harmonic convergence is just where you're listening to this weird kind of chanty music and you're there kind of meditating and kind of along. It's basically trying to be at one with the universe that you can communicate with to the dead. And right. Because of It was a completely nutty and batty storyline as I was rewatching it just recently, but it felt like it all kind of made sense, and even the fact that Zoe was the character that was chosen to do this made absolute sense, because she would do anything to be able to see Shannon again, to be able to talk to her again. I completely believe this, and it was very on the one hand it felt maybe a little bit rushed. It was over and done with within a couple of months, but I don't know how quickly cults work, and Zoe really, really did want to be accepted. She wanted a community, and these people, like you said, they were love bombing her, and she was like, yeah, this is brilliant. And she did admit to Leanne or Nick or Ashley, I can't remember, somebody, that it does seem a little bit odd, but they promised that I can speak to Shannon again if I do this, so this is what I'm going to do. She doesn't want anybody to tell her that what Ben and Ruth are saying is wrong, because she loses all hope of seeing her kid again. Yeah.
So Ashley's saying, I think this is a load of old crap, but she doesn't want to hear that. So Ashley tries to humour her and says, right, I'll go to this meeting at the foundation to see what it's all about, because she wants to convince him that it's not that weird. But when he goes,
has the opposite effect.
He gets freaked out because everybody is
they're all kind of joined hands around the table, aren't they? And
being very stereotypically odd.
Yeah.
And Zoe says, don't even try to get between me and Nirab, because if it's a choice between you two. Nirab's going to win every time.
Now, Nirab, we haven't said so far,
Nope.
but I'm sure lots of people know this already, is an anagram of Brian. So this god character was kind of named as a bit of a joke after Brian Park, who had been the previous Corrie producer, who'd come in, swung his producer's axe, got rid of a load of characters. And it felt like this was a bit of the show's way of sticking two fingers up at this guy.
It was really weird, because presumably that everybody, when he came in, was like, yes, Brian, no, Brian. And then he's left and they're like, screw you, Brian.
And I didn't remember this until I was watching it a couple of weeks ago on ITV3, but there was even a scene where they had... where they showed Zoe a picture of the great Lord Nirab, and it was this caricature they used of Brian Park, like an oil painting of him. Yeah. It was like clearly supposed to be him. Weird. I don't know how they did it without corpsing.
It's weird because I don't know what was it common knowledge? I don't think so. How many casual viewers are really know what the last person looked like? This joke was just in there.
It was a total in-joke
to make everybody on the show laugh.
Yeah.
It had no merit in the story whatsoever, really.
No.
And cutting to this picture of somebody that you only know who it is if you know about the history of Coronation Street. Must have been really weird. Like, imagine people at home watching it going, who's that? Is that supposed to be someone?
When people talk about odd and silly and ridiculous soap storylines, or on Coronation Street at least, this one is always brought up. And it makes me wonder whether if the cult leader wasn't called Nirab and wasn't based on Brian Park, would it still have that reputation? Because
it's a bit sad, really, because it was supposed to be a serious storyline, but they kind of ruined it.
It was an early example of a Corrie Issues story, wasn't it? And like, I can't remember, afterwards they had, phone this number or go to this page on teletext if you think any of your mates are being taken in by a cult. But yeah, people look back on it and think it's a bit silly, but yeah, watching it was really, really good.
So, Zoe gets has to go to a special purification ceremony to become a daughter of Nirab, and Ashley turns up to sort of, I don't know, support her.
No, sure. I don't think he does. He turns up one time and it's to kind of scope her out and say what's exactly is going on. He's heard that she's being purified and he wants to sneak in there and find out what exactly this is involved. And it
basically involves her and Ben kissing.
Yeah, Ashley sees her and Ben going behind this screen, and she kind of takes her clothes off, puts on this white purification gown or whatever, comes back kind of holding hands with Ben, and Ashley, if she doesn't think that this is weird enough, Ben then just kisses her in front of the rest of the cult, and he's like, bloody hell, what are you doing? That's my girlfriend you got there. Tries to snatch her away. He has to kind of be restrained and everything. And
he tries to attack Ben.
Yeah.
So she's obviously not happy about this. She tells him that she's going on a retreat to meet Nirab, and then she comes back and she says, guess what? I've been chosen by Nirab to have a baby with Ben, and I'm going to go and live at the foundation.
Okay. I think Ashley at this point realises that he needs to do something pretty drastic, pretty quick.
I must have only seen like 2 episodes I think you did. Of this.
It escalated incredibly quickly.
So, Gary, Nick and Ashley go to the foundation to try to get her back, but she says, no, that I'd rather be here than with you. If you take me, you'll be keeping me a prisoner.
Yeah,
it's not.
It was a really.
It's the other way around. But
it was quite an exciting rescue scene because they're there, Gary, Nick, and Ashley, and I think it was a van that Gary had, looking out of the gate, and then they see Zoe there and Ben, so they rough and try and get her, and one of them, I can't remember who it is, Gary maybe punches Ben, or oh no, he doesn't. He just kind of pushes him away, and then Ben's on the floor saying, "Don't hit me, don't hit me." And it's great because it's like, yeah, you're just a massive coward, and you're on this power trip, and you think you can ensnare all these people.
Well, he wins in the end because Zoe goes off to live in America with Ben.
Yeah, Ashley brings her back to number 4, tries to keep her locked up, but she's like, no, this is what I want. And it's fascinating because...
And Ashley has to let her go.
Yeah, this is one of the few Coronation Street stories where the villain wins.
True. What are they up to now? That's what I want to know.
25 years on, what is going on at the Etheric Foundation?
Because, I mean... I don't know, honestly, how big of a deal cults are here. But in America, especially in the late 90s, this was massive.
Yeah, I mean, around this time, people were starting to hear about Scientology and whatever, weren't they, as well? And it in a way, it was there as a current issue, but I don't think in the late 90s here there were loads of people at risk of being whisked away by a cult. But, some people probably were, and that's the same with lots of issues that Corrie covers. It doesn't mean that it needs to be something that absolutely everybody is experiencing. It can only be a small handful of people, and I think it was good that some of the signs were pointed out, as a just in case.
Well,
and they had when Zoe went off to the foundation, in a penultimate episode, and Ashley and Nick and Gary or whatever went to the police station, and they were like, Ben and Ruth, we know them. And this etheric foundation has been going up and down the country, and they've been using these various tactics. And it didn't feel like it was a lesson that we, the viewer, were being taught, but it kind of was. Yeah,
because the early 90s was in America when you had Waco and David Koresh and all that. So we would have seen on the news, as people living in the UK, like the horrible fiery inferno that was created when that compound fell, when it was invaded.
Yeah.
And all the people that died, and I don't know, maybe I genuinely don't think that there was a problem with cults.
I don't think so, but
maybe it was because Coronation Street taught us.
Exactly. If it hadn't been for Coronation Street's story, we could have been awash by them now. Yeah. We could have all been brainwashed and going off to the forest to meet Nirab. Interesting again how obviously because Nirab was based on Brian Park, they couldn't have him actually appear on the show.
I know, that's so weird.
And it made me wonder, when I was did they make him up? Is there actually a Nirab? But the fact that Zoe went off to this retreat or whatever and supposedly met him, or did she? I don't know. I don't know whether it was left a little bit vague.
Modern day Scientology, where L. Ron Hubbard is dead and is kind of like he's passed on to another world, or is it like Scientology before L. Ron Hubbard died, where he actually did exist and you could actually meet him in real life?
Yeah, so it wasn't like that. That Nirab was supposed to be some divine being. He was actually there on Earth to visit. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how they what they wanted us to think about him really. But it was good stuff. But sadly for Jo Froggatt, it did mark the end of her time on Coronation Street. It wasn't her decision to leave the show, I've read. But yes,
she also had a bit of a trouble being taken seriously after her stint on Corrie, and it makes me wonder if they had not hammed it up a little bit. Would it have been easier to take her seriously? Because she got given some really hard topics, and she rose to the occasion.
Absolutely, but she did. She was fab.
There's definitely a stigma about being in soaps anyway. But
you're from that weird cult story.
Having a stigma of being in a story that essentially was making fun of something that people already make fun of, i.e. a soap. I don't know if that was helpful.
Yeah, I don't
but know. Didn't really hold her back in the long run.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because she got a BAFTA nomination. She was the lead role in Daniel Cable Eyewitness, and she also was the most promising newcomer at the British Independent Film Awards for her film In Our Name from 2010. She was also in Bad Girls. She's in Life on Mars, Robin Hood, Liar, and I don't know if you've heard of a show called Downton Abbey, but I think it's only popular in the UK because it's more very English, and maybe people in different countries can't relate.
She has gone on to achieve worldwide recognition.
Anna Bates, she was in all 52 episodes and the film, and I think she's going to be in the film that's coming out at Christmas.
Yes, they are. Another film. This Christmas, Downton Abbey 2 and The Matrix 4.
What a life we are leading.
We
got a Golden Globe as well in 2015.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, best performance by an actress in a supporting role in a miniseries or motion picture made for television.
Yeah.
So we've watched Life on Mars, but I can't say that I necessarily remember Jo's character in there. Bad Girls we didn't see. Robin, I mean, if you look at her IMDb page, she has done absolutely loads. But yeah, Downton Abbey is the big one that she's remembered for. And you started watching that a few years before you got me into it, didn't you? Mm-hmm. You were desperate for me to watch Downton, and I think I tried it a few times. But how long was it? Was it only last year we were watching Downton? Was it during lockdown? It might have been,
When did the movie come out?
Yeah, I think
No,
oh, maybe that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 2 years ago.
It was before.
But yeah, I enjoyed it, and her character there, this kind of mousy little maid, was really quite lovable.
No, she
wasn't
was determined and plucky.
Oh, I just remembered the fact that she was going out with Mr. Bates, who was the most insufferably...
He was a dick.
Mr. Bates, he was just so Mr. Perfect,
He was like, I'm going to fall on my sword for no particular reason and sacrifice myself for other people, even though nobody asked me to.
We're not supposed to not like him. He's supposed to be very honourable. So,
he just spent his whole time like
he wound me up.
Like if he I know he was a soldier, wasn't he a soldier? I can't remember. Yeah. But if you genuinely took him to war, he had a limp. If you genuinely went to war with him, he'd spend the whole time throwing hand grenades and jumping on the top. Like you don't need to pull the pin out. I know you're trying to save me, but you're putting me in danger in the first place.
But I did enjoy Anna's character quite a lot. She was good despite
her relationship with the insufferable Mr. Bates.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
And hopefully it's been more of a springboard for Jo's career.
Well, she was very warm about her experience on Coronation Street.
Yeah. There's an interview. This is the one that I was watching the other day.
And this is even after she's been super famous.
I know. Well, she was on the off-camera show in 2016 and said that it was the best learning experience for me being on Corrie. That is, this was my drama school. Yes, there's elements to any soap or any long-running series that can not be as high quality, because she was talking about Snopes snobbery and everything. But there were also Snopes snobbery. But there were also some fantastic actors, fantastic writers, fantastic directors. You learn a really strong work ethic. She talked about, going in, no rehearsal time, rehearsing in the green room. You got 1-2 takes maybe to get it right, and that's stuck with her and has helped her in her future career on the big programmes. Not that Corrie's not big.
I think Corrie's pretty big, isn't it?
It's a pretty big show, yeah. I was also reading a couple of other quotes and things about her from the Corrie magazines. That in issue 50 there was an Ask Jo section, so a bit more behind the scenes stuff about Zoe, or her thoughts about Zoe. She says she describes Zoe as being a bit moody, not very happy person. I don't think I'm like that, but she's very strong. I tend to worry about things all the time and she just doesn't care. I wish I was a little bit more like her in that respect. She said she probably wouldn't want to go out with Ashley in real life as he's a bit too nice and soft.
Yes.
She says she gets recognised quite a bit when she goes out. Most people are quite nice, so she did get one woman calling her a bitch one time because she left the baby in the squat.
And she probably went, fair enough, I hold my hands up.
And she says Zoe is quite selfish, but she's had so many bad things happen to her in her life that she has to really put herself first, because it's the only way she knows how to live, really.
I think that's a pretty fair
Yeah, definitely. She's had to fight, struggle all her life. You become
very self-orientated when you're the only one that's looking out for you, for what you want and need.
Yeah. So I leave my second go of watching Zoe's storyline with very, very fond memories of her. Like I said, she was in character all the time. She was, despite being, she pushed people away, yet wanted to be accepted in the same way. So she was, at the same time, she was not necessarily difficult to like, but you can understand how the people living on Coronation Street would have shunned her. I would be very, very interested to see her coming back to the show. I don't know how likely it is now that she's gone on to hit the big time.
She's still friends with Leanne, the character of Zoe.
Well, yeah, exactly. There is still the link there, isn't there? If Zoe were to come back, Leanne would be the person that she would gravitate towards, I suppose.
Because we did have a bit of woo science in the show when we had Sinead's friend who said that you could drink kale juice to stop getting cancer, and then she died of cancer. I can imagine sort of Zoe coming back and saying, I've been through it all, and I realised that it was wrong, and I'm totally not about that anymore. But what I really am for now is, healthy living and being a vegan and not putting chemicals in your body like COVID vaccines. And I hope you're not vaccinated. You can just imagine her having traded one set of because she was very, very impressionable. Beliefs with another set.
Yeah, I could see her hanging out on various subreddits and learning all about these out there ideas and just believing them, because if she has left the cult at this point and she's looking for something else to cling on to, because she's literally got nobody in her life apart from the cult members, because that's what cults do to you. But then the other alternative is that maybe the Etheric Foundation is doing their rounds in Weatherfield again, and she comes back and she's, you know, she's right up there. She's the Grand Dame. Yeah, maybe.
Nirab's
maybe
wife.
It's the cult of Zoe now. Yeah,
well, it would have to be somebody else's anagram of a previous.
Yeah, you can't make much of an anagram out of Zoe, can you?
Not really.
Cult of O's. Yeah. I don't know. I would. I mean, she, as I say, she's a fantastic actress, and the fact that Leanne is there. I mean, and the fact that she's just lost the baby. We've been drawing all these links between what was going on with Zoe to what's going on with Leanne now. If any time was going to be the perfect time to get her back on the show, now is it. But I don't know whether she'd want to.
I think it'd be really interesting because like I said, Corrie did dabble a little bit with people that don't like to follow science, and I think that somebody in a cult might latch onto those ideas in a different kind of a way.
Well, I don't even know, like, if you're in a cult, if you're in this cult, how much are you
on the internet?
Yeah, exactly. How much are you locked away from finding the inside world? Do we meet Zoe again where she's literally just escaped or been released or whatever, and she's still stuck in 1999 mode, and she has to be reintegrated into modern
Nirvana.
Yeah, into modern. I don't know, that I feel that there is a lot that they could do with this character, and it'd be a bit of a boost for Coronation Street actually to be able to get Jo back on the show.
Oh, I think it would be fantastic, but I don't think they'll ever do it. But
I don't think they will.
It would be, it'd be fun. I think what's the modern equivalent of what she went through, really?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that this cult storyline is looked back on as being a bit silly is another reason why Corrie might not want to bring it back. Although it didn't stop them bringing
attention to.
Yeah, it didn't stop them from revisiting the baby swap storyline for Michelle and Ryan and Alex, did it?
Or selling children storyline, which they've done about 5 times since.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love it. But yeah, great character. I loved her. I loved the Mallets, despite the fact that they were massively manipulating her. It was all just a bunch of characters in a really, really desperate situation, and and seeing what depths you would go to get what you wanted to make you happy, I suppose. But very, very good stuff.
I feel really sorry for Zoe. She didn't have a happy ending, really.
No.
She thought that I mean, maybe she did. Who's to say? She went to America and she got what she wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we
look back on the
cult as being evil, but maybe they gave her a brilliant life and she's been living the high life for the past 25 years.
Crystals don't heal you? I don't know. What harm can it do? As long as you also go to the doctor.
Yes.
At the same time, you don't just rely on sticking a crystal up your bum.
For her, it was a happy ending. She gets in the car, or the taxi, or whatever it is. She's driven away. Ashley's there, sobbing his heart out, and it's a really, really touching final scene for him. But
it's either go off in a cult to America, or get bludgeoned to death by Richard Hillman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who's to say it wouldn't have been her on that getting murdered in front of the TV?
She would have been there, wouldn't she? It would have been.
Well, Maxine.
You should have stayed at the foundation, Zoe. The Cult of Nirab Capron. Right, shall we leave it there?
I think
that's about an hour to talk about a character that's only been in, just over 100 episodes. She's got we only spent half an hour talking about Richard Hillman himself, didn't we?
I know.
So we will draw a conclusion under it and say what a fantastic character Zoe was. And if you, as listening to this, also enjoyed her and you want to write in and tell us what you think, then let us know. Send us an email to conversationstreet@gmail.com or tell us on our Facebook group or our Twitter or whatever, and maybe we'll read it out.
Maybe.
We're done.
That's it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Saturday with our normal podcast episode, so join us then. But until then, ta-ra for now.
Bye.
Praise be to Nirab.